So did I. This jacket's been for about 30 below. So I'm going to stand out there. No, but it's double layered and everything. Stand outside with this on for all day. I won't get cold. If it gets much above.
Couple minutes here. We're working on a technical issue, so thanks for your patience. This will be our meeting. Or you want to see the actual meeting?
Oh, this one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you. And I don't have to call on John. I'll be back. No, I got it. You did? Yep. I took all the.
Okay, 5:02, we're going to call to order the Administration Committee meeting for January 16th, 2024. Roll call, please. Chair Cook? Present. Vice Chair Counter?
Present.
Supervisor Long?
Present.
Supervisor Fiedler?
Present.
Supervisor Bernie?
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Our next item, approval of the minutes from Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. Are there any changes to the minutes? No, seeing no changes, the minutes will stand. Public comment is our next item, and we have quite a few people here for public comment tonight, I think. Administrator Witt is working on a call-in, right, from Congressman Tiffany. So we're going to start with that since it's a call-in, or he's going to be calling him.
This is Tom.
Congressman Tiffany, this is Ken Witt with St. Croix County. You are live during our public comment period. You are clear to go.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. And it is my understanding that the county, St. Croix County, is considering a similar resolution as Chippewa County to take a pause to see whether refugees should be brought into western Wisconsin. And I just wanted to say that I support that effort at having a pause and being able to get full information. I would give you two examples in regards to this, or two reasons why. One is in regards to coordination. If you look at 8 U.S.C. 1520 or 1522, it says very clearly in there that the federal government must consult and coordinate with local municipalities. They have not been doing that, in my estimation. The second thing is the screening that has been going on in regards to not just refugees, but also to illegal immigrants generally, and the various ways in which they can come into the United States, has been suspect at best. And the best example I can give you is when the 78,000 Afghans were brought in August of 2021. I went down to Fort McCoy, asked the commanding officer, had these people who were coming in from Afghanistan, had they gone through the thorough process of being reviewed, and they had not. And it turned out later that the State Department said and this was an official of the State Department, said after all of them were brought out of Afghanistan in August of 2021, he said, let's just get them on the planes and we'll sort out the immigration stuff later. And that's been very consistent by the Biden administration, and it's part of the reason why I believe we cannot trust them to do the screening process properly. Also, you look at so many countries where the refugees are coming from. You don't go down to the local DMV, for example, in Kabul in Afghanistan, and get the same information that you can get from other first world countries. And so it really should be a thorough vetting process that goes on. For example, there's something called a special immigrant visa that the previous administration required Afghans to go through because there was so little information available, and we wanted to make sure that people were not coming into the United States with terrorist ties. The other thing that I would say is that the cost of services is not being considered thoroughly by both state and federal government when you take a look at schools and public health services, welfare payments, and various social safety net programs that we're so generous with here in America. We need to make sure that that does not prove to be too burdensome for American citizens. And I would note that the Housing Authority director in Eau Claire County has said in a letter that we were CC'd on in my office that she is concerned that there's enough housing stock in Eau Claire to be able to handle these people, and actually would turn out to be a burden for local citizens who are trying to buy a house, that there'd actually be less housing stock that's available. And that's just one example amongst many of the burdens that could fall on American citizens who are already here. So with that, I agree with the pause, and in regards to the resolution to pause what is going on, I believe both the federal government and the state of Wisconsin need to be much more forthcoming about this. I believe the city administrator of Eau Claire was remiss in not fully giving full information to the people of Eau Claire and the Chippewa Valley when they were considering it. I'm not sure why they kept that quiet. If they think it's something that's worthy, it should be able to withstand public scrutiny. So with that, thank you very much for allowing me to share my remarks.
Thank you, Congressman. Have a good evening. Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will go through public comment now. I have cards here. I will call folks up in the order that I have the cards. I know there's some people that are in the overflow room, so what I will do is call the next person up and then let you know who's on deck. And apologies ahead of time if I mispronounce anyone's names. I'll do the best that I can. So we will have 3 minutes for public comment. I ask everyone to please try and be concise so everyone has a chance to state their public comment and respectful of everybody else's opinions. I know it's an issue that's obviously brought a lot of folks here, so let's move forward. All right, so the first public comment will be Mark Carlson, and on deck, Frank Roshnot Jr. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Mark Carlson. I live in Pleasant Valley. I'm also District 15 Supervisor of the County Board here. Most of the talking points that Congressman Tiffany said were right on. There's a lot of the things that we were going to say. One thing I would say, or ask Congress Tiffany to consider, is they have the purse string, the purse strings in Congress, and they should look at defunding the organizations that are pushing this, using the power to purse string if they don't want to. I know Congressman Van Orden has been asked by some of his constituents to do that. And then I went through firsthand experience 2 waves of these resettlements in St. Paul. And the first one was the Hmong, and everybody was a little worried about it, wasn't sure, it was something new. The Hmong helped us in Vietnam War, and that's why they said they were going to come over. The Hmong came and out-Americanized most of the Americans. They came, they put up flags, they took Constitution classes, they joined a melting pot, they assimilated. And started businesses, and that was just a great experience. There's parts of St. Paul that were totally revitalized, University Avenue area especially, if you know St. Paul. And then we had the Somalians come, and they stayed. They didn't become Americans. Even today, when you drive through, you don't see flags. They keep their language. A lot of them don't learn the language. There's areas of Minneapolis after hours, because I Uber all through it, that are kind of no-go zones. They will not accept their Constitution because the Quran doesn't allow them to. So eventually that problem will go away, I assume, as the next generations will assimilate. But every place that we've had, like the Somalians especially, they've just had nothing but problems. It costs the community a lot, just like Congressman Tiffany was talking about. So especially without the vetting, and it seems like they're just trying to sneak them in. I'm totally for the resolution to at least do a pause on this and not rush to have. So thank you.
Thank you. Frank Roshnot Jr., and then on deck we have Carol Ivance.
I want to cover a few things. I have to read my statements. Welcome, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Rushnot Jr. from Woodville, Wisconsin. With my continuing education from the barnyard, I can only find two genders, male and female. I have friends every shape, size, color, thin and big, ethnic backgrounds, etc. Have any of you on the board or in the audience ever heard of the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights that we have in America? If any of you board members vote to bring refugee settlement to St. Croix County, that's bringing more taxation without representation. There is nothing in the Constitution that says the taxpayers have to fund this crap, and don't lie to the public saying that it won't cost taxpayers anything. Just look at the problems being created at our northern and southern borders with the permitted invasion by the current buffoon and his minions in office now. Again, costing the hardworking taxpayers massive amounts, including crime and possible terrorism. They are not vetted. I don't want to sound like a nut job, but I also don't care if you think I am one. I don't want to live under China, the crap we have to always buy, communism, fascism, Marxism, socialism, one world order, Green New Deal fraud, the Great Reset fraud, censorship, EGS scores, artificial intelligence, electric and gas rations. I love my big gas-guzzling SUVs. Digital currency. Digital currency will allow our gangster government to control what you can do and buy, just like China does, now to their people. With the computers in all the new cars, gangster government will be able to control where you go, including maybe not letting you go to work. And you're a total fool if you think they would never do that. Remember Canada, the truckers' credit cards were shut off. I can't stress it enough that you, all the taxpayers, have to step up and start an aggressive babysitting regimen at your local schools, libraries, cities, counties, state, the politicians, courts, everywhere. Asking lots of questions, requesting and looking at all documents, books, and a big one is to follow the budgets and money. They will make everything complicated and run you in circles. The fraud, waste, abuse, stupidity, incompetence, corruption, total dishonesty is massive at every level, every entity, including the failed education system. I can talk from a lot of experience. We all need to step up with courage, determination to save America from further destruction by the evil, sinister elites and the loons and goons they created in our education system.
3 minutes. Thank you.
God gave we the people our rights, freedoms, and liberties. I don't want to live in a third world hellhole.
We have a lot of people. Thank you. To move it along, can we just please hold off on comments and applause from the audience? Thank you. The next speaker we have Carol Ivance, and on deck is Carrie Kittle. Go ahead.
Hi, like you said, my name's Carol Ivance. I live in Hudson. And I'm just wondering, are there rules in your home? Does anyone just take stuff from anyone's room, pee on the floor, leave the doors open, let anyone walk in whenever, move in, start telling you what to do in your own home, be able to shove you out the door but still be responsible to pay the bills? I'm serious. Would you have problems with any of that stuff? Why do we have laws in civilized societies? Why are people fleeing the countries and cities where lawlessness, especially in the so-called government, has taken over? Or aren't you aware that places like San Francisco, Portland, Chicago, even Minneapolis to an extent, have been allowed to degrade into literal hellholes where the police won't go because they themselves are targets? And then there's the other extreme, like the areas in Michigan and parts of Minneapolis and probably other places where these people have set up their own societies and instituted Sharia law instead of U.S. law. And I have nothing against Muslims. I have Muslim friends, but there are extremists. And I mean, there's extremists on the right, there are extremists on the left. I'm not trying to pick on any one society, but we have to be aware of these things. Does it concern you that U.S. law is not being followed in the case of this refugee resettlement program, like Congressman Tiffany pointed out? Why are they getting snuck into Eau Claire County? Are these people even in the U.S. legally? Are these families, or are they a bunch of military-aged men with weapons? And plenty of those have come across the border. It's funny how it's okay for them to have weapons, but I guess we're not supposed to anymore, even though 2A is part of the Constitution, or one of the amendments. Why not follow the long-established legal channels to resettle truly displaced peoples? And why are the 22 Arab nations refusing to take any of the Muslim refugees? We have plenty of refugees, like Mark pointed out, who've become productive, hardworking members of societies. They're more than welcome to come here. I have no problem with that. But this group and the entire situation surrounding their getting forced on us illegally does not fit the tried and true legal way to go about this. Plus, our tax money is being stolen to foot the bill. And please realize that if you think this is a good idea and you vote for it, wherever these folks end up, they won't have any gratitude for the people who opened the door and let them in. You'll get run over along with the rest of us. So if you're wearing rose-colored glasses, please take them off and look at reality and take care of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, Carrie Kittle. On deck, we have Tom Irwin.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the committee for having this forum so people can come and share their opinions. And I'd like to thank the full board for dealing with difficult things like this. I know that you're going to hear from other people who are going to point out that the resolution is outside the board's purpose and a waste of time. It's a federal issue. But I would just like to quote from the Refugee Act of 1980, the thing that the resolution seems to be based on. The objectives of this act are to provide a permanent and systematic procedure for the admission to this country of refugees of special humanitarian concern to the United States and to provide comprehensive and uniform provisions for the effective resettlement and absorption of those refugees who are admitted. It's a structured plan. What that act did was to try and upgrade and improve what had been before, as we absorbed tons of waves of immigration from Southeast Asia and other places. When I think about the real nature of this kind of a resolution, I think it really is has a great deal to do with being a red meat issue designed to anger the base and to stimulate fundraising.
You heard a lot of things about allegations about what immigrants do. This is a longer conversation for a separate venue, but virtually every wave of immigrants that's ever come to this country has improved the economy. They become taxpayers. Do some people slip through the cracks? I'm sure. But you can find a lot of evidence that suggests immigrants become, in a very short period of time, productive and contributing people to the economy, and state and local economies. Those folks spend money where they live. And then a while ago, and I appreciate the fact to be kind of on point, because we've heard at least one speech which was sort of a anti-government diatribe. There were a lot of isms in there. The one that wasn't in there was Americanism. You hear a lot of conversations about language. I would submit that almost anybody in this room who came from immigrant stock, if language mastery were a condition to be included in this country, they would have never got in. But their grandparents or great-grandparents or whoever worked hard, they became good citizens, and I think just simply assuming that everybody who's coming into this country is somehow a danger or a threat is wrong.
Thank you. Okay, Tom
My
Irwin.
name is Tom Irwin, and I served 3 terms on the county board, so I'm familiar with what you all are doing. And I gave each of you this packet. It's about a 40-page packet. And this is the new warfare that we're in right now. We're in World War III, except the Americans have not figured that out yet. And I know you might think that, well, I'm a bit of a quack, but the U.S. government actually discovered this by accident in the early 90s. It was used in the Holy Land trials, litigation. And what it does is lays out here very clearly what the plan is for the Muslim Brotherhood in this explanatory memorandum to take over the United States, to use our laws to take over the United States. How do they do that? They guide their people into each voting district one at a time. When they have a majority, then they vote their Islamic Muslims into power, and then they start replacing every government employee with an Islamic Muslim, and there you go, and they move on to the next one. And if you want to keep the wool pulled over your eyes about that, if you think what I'm saying is foolish, then all you need to do is look across the river right here. And we can go to a number of other communities. Minnesota's got several of them going right now, St. Cloud, Wilmer, and probably Owatonna next. And that's the system. They're using our laws and they're taking over. They have no intentions of using the Constitution. There's already a lot of Sharia law courts throughout the country, and that's their goal. They're not coming here to change their way of life, to have a better way of life, to assimilate. They're coming here instead to force us to assimilate to what they're doing. And if you look at the U.S. verbiage in the refugees, they don't even say assimilate. Instead of assimilate, they use the word integrate. Integrating people into your community is a lot different than assimilating. It's not like our great-grandparents when they came here. In addition to that, our great-grandparents, they had to have someone to take care of them when they came here. The government didn't stand at the border handing them things, taking care of them, paying for all of their needs, trying to dump all that cost on the taxpayers. They came in here they wanted to become Americans, and these people don't. Now, you can say, well, they're not all bad, and I would agree with you. But we can go to World War II and talk about Nazi Germany, too, and say the majority of Germans are not bad people. They never would have gone out to murder 10,000 Christians and 7,000 Jewish people. But they're insignificant because they're not going to do anything to stop it. You don't have to look very far for crime waves taking place in the United States right now, and the best place to look would be over to Europe.
Thank you, sir. That's 3 minutes. Thank you.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see, I didn't call the next person. I don't know, Matt Bachland, if you're in here. If not. Okay. Yep, the next on deck will be Kay Haggerty.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for holding this tonight. For those who don't know, I was actually one of the original 4 organizers, along with some people in this room, who started this movement across what we call the 100-mile radius. What is happening is it affects 100 miles outside of Eau Claire. What that means is they were supposed to hold meetings with interest groups, county boards, city boards, schools, hospitals, and things like that. What we quickly realized by recovering 1,000 open record requests on this matter, this was done between 3 people in Eau Claire. It was signed by a Stephanie Hirsch, who is not elected. Not elected. She signed a letter welcoming World Relief in. World Relief cannot tell us where the people are from for certainty. They can't tell us when. However, when we first started this process, we started at a VFW, and maybe about 150 people or so were there. We have stood in the rain. We have stood in the freezing cold. We've had the police and canines sit outside and watch our peaceful protests. We have peacefully went and told our piece at the county boards in the cities. This is taxation without representation. These are the good people of the 100-mile radius standing up and asking for a voice, asking for a seat at the table. They're coming to ask us for our dollars. In 1991, this program went bankrupt. In 1991, the federal government released any money that went to the states to support this. Between 1980 and 1991, the federal government was giving the states to support the schools, the food, the money in the pocket, the transportation, the translators. That's no more. World Relief only has to take care of these people for 90 days. Once the 90 days are up, it becomes us, the taxpayer. And the remittances that are leaving the United States every single year, Ron DeSantis mentioned this in a debate twice. Nobody listened to him. The remittances are leaving the United States from the hard-working taxpayers. And before I actually end here, I just want to thank every single person who has stood up, has been part of this citizen-led activity. We were in the heart of Eau Claire and Chippewa. We just got a huge victory in Chippewa. It passed the executive board going next month for a vote, and I hope you show up. But we've had Democrats, we've had Republicans, we have independents, and we have people who've never voted standing with us. This is an American issue, and it's time for us to reclaim our rights and have our voice heard. We are the citizens, we are the government, and when your government fails, you stand up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please, everybody. Thank you. Kay Haggerty, and following that will be William, I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, Upfall? Hopefully you recognize I called your name.
Okay, my name is Kay Haggerty, and I'm from Minnesota, lived in the Twin Cities for most of my life. My husband and I moved over here to the Hudson area about 15 years ago, and night and day for us having lived there. And I'm going to I wanted to say a lot of what's already been said by the speakers ahead of me, especially Mark, because I grew up over there in the Twin Cities, and he mentioned the Hmong population, South Vietnamese, all those people that came to the Twin Cities assimilated and contributed. And so the difference between the Muslim population coming in from various countries in the Middle East and the others is the huge difference is the lack of assimilation, because they want to be over here and have their system parallel to ours. And I can just address one thing in particular. Ilhan Omar, the representative in Congress now, came to Minnesota, and she was sworn in on the Quran and refused to follow the Constitution, and she did that in Minnesota, and I don't know how that ever happened, that she went to the congressional, to the federal level, and also got to serve there, because they refused to support the constitutional, the Sharia law is what they follow. And I got interested in this because over in the Twin Cities, it was in the 90s that they brought a whole lot of people from Somalia. They had been in Detroit. By the way, the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, is a Muslim from Detroit. And so he was over here, and the Muslim population, the Somalis from Detroit, were brought to the Twin Cities and placed on the west bank of the U of M, where I went to school. And so that community was pretty much taken over. And, you know, I could just go on and on about the Twin Cities and St. Cloud, the same. Those are the two communities I'm the most familiar with, that they have the call to prayer many times a day, and they're on loudspeakers, so no matter where you live, or where, you know, if you want to be part of it or not, you don't get to choose because the call to prayer is done. I could go on with many examples of that, but I just probably am almost out of time, but I just wanted to echo what a lot of the people were saying, and I'm so grateful to Matt and the others that are doing this, because at the point they're doing it at, you can make a difference to stop what has gone on in the other areas. And I've been following this issue for a long time, and everything, I want to just echo everything they said, is that I'm Norwegian. Trust me, this is not the way and I'm second generation Norwegian. This is not the way my people came to the country. Thank you.
Next, we have William Upfall, and then following that, Linda Hendricks.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing the public input on this very important matter this evening. I reside in Boyceville, Wisconsin, which is actually in Dunn County. And I'm here because this issue will affect me just like it affects you. We all fall within the 100-mile radius of the Eau Claire office. And I would just like to pose some open questions, not expecting an answer, just wanting you to ask yourselves these questions and dig into it. Have you read U.S. Code Section 1522? It is very clear. All of you were supposed to be involved in this process from the very beginning. Have any of you been contacted by World Relief or the director in Wisconsin or from the feds on this? If not, U.S. laws and codes are not being followed. Are we a nation of laws or are we not? I'll keep my comments pretty short. I hope you all also consider that Wisconsin is a home rule state. Please keep that in mind. And I would also encourage you all to read, watch videos on the doctrine of lesser magistrates. Local government has a lot more power than what they know. And I would ask you all to have courage and stand up for the rule of law, because that is what this really boils down to. If the law is not being followed, that is taxation without representation. Because after 90 days, all of the costs associated, whether it's interpreters or translators or housing, the list goes on, schooling, policing, it all falls on our backs. So, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I really encourage you all to seriously take those questions and look into them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, can we please hold the applause, everybody? Thank you. Next up, Linda Hendricks, and following that will be Matthew Rust, I believe.
I am standing here today to ask you to please vote against this anti-refugee resettlement resolution. The resolution has nothing to do with the responsibilities of the county board and is a distraction from the work they should be doing. This is federal responsibility, not local. Refugees are carefully vetted before they gain entry into our country. I'm talking refugees. This resolution appears to be purposely misrepresenting refugees with illegal immigrants and other asylum seekers to create havoc and distrust, and feels very mean-spirited. My sister, who is currently in Ethiopia right now, is currently helping a female refugee become acclimated to America in the Chicago area. She is having very positive experiences with this young woman who now calls her mom. What is happening at the border is very distressing, especially in Texas. We need federal officials and Congress to work together to solve these issues. To work so hard to keep vetted refugees out of our community feels racist and creates fear and distrust of the new people who are trying to settle here. This resolution needs to be abandoned. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Matthew Rust, and following that, Lee Brown.
Thank you for having us here today. My name is Matthew Rust. I'm the current chairman of the Republican Party of St. Croix County. I just want to start off by saying that the Republican Party was founded for the sole reason of ending slavery in order to guarantee the constitutional rights to all Americans for freedom and liberty. But we all know that freedom is not free. Countless Americans have given their lives over the years to defend and guarantee the freedoms and liberties that we all currently now enjoy. But this, our nation and our constitutional republic is something that's special and unique in the world. It's worth preserving. It's worth dying for, and people have done that. The problem with the refugee resettlement system is that it bypasses our current immigration system, which has been set up to make sure that anyone coming into this country is educated, they understand what it means to be an American, that they want to be Americans. It's a process and a system that's set up to preserve and protect what we have here in this country. So when you bring people in who don't go through that system, again, specifically designed to make sure people coming into our country understand and value what we have, then you get it obviously leads to problems, right? You need to be educated to do certain things. In America, unlike a lot of other countries, authoritarian countries, you need to be educated on our system in order to participate in it and to perpetuate it and to make sure that everybody has the rights and freedoms that we enjoy. So, again, allowing people into our communities who don't fully understand that will create problems. And so to preserve freedom and liberty, immigrants should be coming through our immigration system, not the refugee resettlement system and not through an open border. I know they're not the same thing, but even our refugee system, I do believe it's unnecessary. I'm not sure exactly why it exists and why we have bought into it and are funding it as much as we are, but I would recommend that we do not support refugees coming into this
Thank
nation.
you for your comments. We have a lot of people. Thank you. Okay, up next we have Lee Brown, and following that, Sarah Bachland.
I'm Lee Brown. My wife and I live in St. Joseph Township, and I didn't prepare remarks, wish I had, but I am for legal immigration, and I am for the rule of law. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Sarah Bachland is next, and following that, Timothy Holden.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Ken, I just wanted to say that Darla Myers is waiting on the line if you're able to call her and take her public comment. All right. So we've heard concerns of Sarah Bachland. I live in St. Croix County in Troy Township. We've heard arguments saying that this county has no authority to pass a resolution like this. The World Relief, they work with local governments, so it is within your scope to pass this resolution. This is obviously not symbolic. If the World Relief is bringing this in to governments, you have the ability to agree to it or not. So it is not a symbolic resolution. We've heard that the people coming in are vetted. I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily trust that system that's set in place. If you look at, I have documentation on this, but if you look at the Burmese immigrants or the refugees there, there was 1,700 people who came in under false premises, so they were falsifying their information when they came into the country. So it does happen. Questions I think we need to answer. Did World Relief follow the U.S. code? Did they follow the law in coordinating with local offices? This does affect our county because, as people have mentioned, it is within the 100-mile radius here in St. Croix County. Are we prepared for this continued influx of the resettlers? Refugees can bring over their family members as soon as they come. The Refugee Act dictates that benefits that refugees must receive include housing, furnishings, food allowance, clothing, pocket money, medical care, transportation, housing. Are we currently taking care of our citizens right now, especially our veterans? I don't know that we can handle this financial burden right now. If you're aware of Whitewater, with those police forces over there are overwhelmed. There's plenty of articles on that with the influx of the immigrants there. How can refugees be vetted? This is my last point. How can refugees be vetted from some foreign countries with no functioning government?
Thank you.
Right.
3 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have Timothy Holden, and then Mary McGurran, maybe?
I'd like to thank the county board for allowing me to speak tonight. And my name's Tim Holden, and I'm from New Richmond, St. Croix County resident. And a lot of us come from our own experience, I realize. I had 3 kids fight in this war against Islam, 3 Marines, including my daughter, and I almost lost my oldest son. We tend to come from our own experience, and I'm thankful that we have this free meeting tonight, because this is for we the people, and that's what the Constitution teaches. sometimes things are really hard to spit out. When I grew up, the society we lived in wasn't as open as we have now, like on social media. But I'm just going to mention this. I have a daughter, and some of you here are mothers, daughters, and you have granddaughters. And I worked in Minneapolis for 2 years. And this is a fact. The Somalian men still sexually mutilate their women. And this is common knowledge. And you can check me on that. So if you think Islam's compatible with the American way, that's delusional. And I'm not going to stop by and, after my dad almost died in Nazi Germany, and as some of you know, Islam is a form of Marxism. Karl Marx started communism, if you know your history. And I just want you to know I'm totally against this resettlement and vague and obscure way they're doing this. And I plead with you, if you have grandchildren, please really think about this. Have you studied Islam? They don't want our way of life. They want Sharia law, like was mentioned a couple times here. I worked in Minneapolis for 2 years. You just wouldn't believe it. Akub Ahmed, he was a Somalian I worked with. His brother came over here with him. We wined and dined him. Then he went back over to Somalia and the Middle East and shot at our soldiers. And when he came back, thankfully the FBI arrested him. And you can check my facts on that. His brother's name, Akub Ahmed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mary McCurran, and following that, Michael Hansen.
Good evening. My name is Mary McCurran. I live in St. Croix County in the village of North Hudson. And I would like to just say that I appreciate that what you're grappling with here, and I would ask respectfully that you do not move this forward to the full board, or that if you do, that it is voted against. Refugees are here legally. There is nothing that we can do on a county level to stop refugees from being here. The United States allows freedom of movement for people here. People can settle where they choose. Yes, they have sponsors through a Christian organization in the Chippewa Valley, and the Christian organization who is sponsoring them has identified there's 75 people, possibly 20 family units. Those are the facts. And yes, they don't have the information about when they're coming. They have posted a lot of FAQs online if anyone is interested in getting more information. And the population, 75 people, is 0.007% of this area. So this is not anything to be afraid of. And I have to say that as a mother, a grandmother, a person who has lived in Minneapolis, who has family in Minneapolis, who also has family in St. Croix County, and I also live in St. Croix County now, that the people that I know that are refugees and immigrants are good people. It pains me to think of the things that are being said about good people tonight being painted with such a broad brush. And I apologize to anyone who's listening here that is a resident of St. Croix County, that is a refugee or an immigrant, because that expression here does not reflect everyone in our community. And I would please ask the board to show the compassion and goodness and American spirit that we have here, and to also act within your authority as a county board and stay out of the federal government business. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, Michael Hansen, and on deck, Chris Babbitt.
Hello, I'm Michael, and I'm a resident of St. Croix County, Hammond specifically, but I'm also a college student. So for part of the year, I'm actually a resident of Eau Claire. And as a resident of Eau Claire for the past 4 months, I find it a surprise that we've been blindsided by this refugee crisis. I was reading about this in October. This was started in the spring. There was no surprise here. We've known because they went through the right parameters. So that's the first of Representative Tiffany's point, which I specifically want to address. Second one, Afghans at Fort McCoy, they were vetted per the Department of Homeland Security. And so they're fine. And they're also at a fort, so if we're talking about security, that's pretty good. The third point is we don't even have any resettlement agencies in St. Croix County. If they're going to put them anywhere in this so-called 100-mile radius, they're not going to put them here because we don't have anywhere, we don't have logistics. So that point is moot as well. And I appreciate Mr. Tiffany's input, but I'd also ask him, as a federal representative, to focus on maybe, I don't know, funding the government, because that hasn't happened in a bit. What I have seen in these past, hour, 50 minutes, has made me disappointed to reside here. For the man who said that we should think of our grandkids, or you all should think of your grandkids, when thinking about Islam, I'll tell you what I think. Islam is fine. I go to school with Muslims, and they don't kill me. I'm here. I'm alive. I'm friends with them. Sorry if I seem angry, but I am, because this is not how we should act. This is an issue, but it is not an issue that has to be waged with anger and hate and conspiracy. Maybe it's because I'm a member of a new generation. That could be true. I don't know. I mean, I had all these actual remarks about the resolution, the law, but it's clear that this is simply a proxy battle for those who have everything to brute force stomp down those who have nothing. That's simply disgraceful. I want to end with one last point for the first commenter, Bar Carlson, and a word that's been used a lot tonight, assimilation. Assimilation is a word that has a long history too. Native Americans, they were assimilated through boarding schools. I think it's high time, using the words of Hubert Humphrey, one of the greatest Americans to serve in office here, that we step out from the shadows of assimilation and into the bright sunshine of inclusion, of tolerance, and of humanity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up, Chris Babbitt, and then on deck, Robert Zeck. C-I-Z-E-K? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for giving all of us time tonight to express our support or our concerns about the resolution. My name is Chris Babbitt. I've lived here in St. Croix County for 34 years, specifically in Hudson. I've also had the distinct privilege of serving on this board for 4 years as Chair of Health and Human Services, working with Chair Long and others who are still here today. When an issue came before the board back in my tenure between 2014 and 2018, being new to working in government, I said to myself, if I'm going to vote on something that comes before this board, I better understand it. I better have some sense of why this is being brought forward, how people feel about it, what their views are. And believe me, some of the issues that come before the county board are extremely complicated. And this is one of those. As I listen to the commentary tonight, one of the things that stands out for me is that we seem to be now making a distinction between certain immigrants or certain resettlement individuals as opposed to others. So for example, in St. Paul, the Hmong population, A-OK. Somalis, not so much. I don't want to be a part of a system that picks and chooses who may come, who is okay, who's not okay. We either are all right with the program, and no matter where you come from, you're welcome here, or we're not okay with the program, but we can't have it both ways. We can't say one group of individuals is fine and another group is not. It seems to me that that creates all kinds of problems. Very quickly, in 2017, a member of the county board floated an idea about making St. Croix County a sanctuary county for immigrants. He wanted the county board to pass a similar resolution, only on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, saying that St. Croix County would open its doors to refugees that came across our borders to be here. That ordinance, as most of you may know, or I'm here to let you know, did not get out of committee. And the reason it didn't get out of committee, despite the fact that many of us thought we should at least talk about the issue, was that we agreed at that time this was just not a county board issue. It doesn't mean it's not an issue we should be concerned about or an issue we should talk about, but not something primarily for the county board to decide. This resolution admittedly is on the opposite side of that one, but even a pro-immigration resolution and proposal that came up at that time didn't make it out of committee for the same reason I think this one should not as well. I agree with much of what the young man said here before us, and one piece of that again is
Sir,
the fact
sorry, 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, next up, Robert, and then following that, Paul Hambleton.
Thank you, Board, for the privilege of speaking a few minutes about this refugee resettlement. My name is Bob Cizik, and I'm from North Hudson. I'm opposed to the refugee resettlement, and I would like to see this resolution pass through committee and the board, the full board, vote that we're against this. And the reasons is I'm a former resident of the Rice Lake area, and I grew up knowing the city of Barron very well. Well, what happened during the city of Barron, they brought in a bunch of Somalis. The Somalis basically ruined the city. As a result of their influx, housing prices went way down. The school district had major problems. They built a brand new jail, government center, just north of town. I forget how many millions, but anyway, before I left the county in 2014, the jail was full of Somalis. I was talking to one of the jailers, and he said, yeah, he says, that's all we do all day long is just deal with these Somali people. There's not enough room in the brand new jail that basically, I don't know, doubled the capacity of the old one to support these people. It just caused a lot of problems. Lastly, I used to take my kids to this park in Barron. It's right alongside the Willow River. They like to play there and swim. Well, we had to stop doing that. I felt threatened, not only for myself, but for the children. There was groups of Somali men just roaming around the park, and they didn't look friendly. They didn't act friendly. So we quit going there. This is a public park. So anyway, to sum it up, I'm against this Somali refugee resettlement, and I would like to see the board approve this resolution. It not only affects St. Croix County, but it affects all the surrounding counties within a 100-mile radius of Eau Claire. It's an important issue, and I would hate to see that, sure, 75 to start with, but there's like 3,000 in the works. So we need to stop it in its tracks. Thank you for your cooperation.
All right, thank you. Next up, Paul Hambleton, and then following that, Sue Curtis.
Thank you, supervisors, and thank the whole county board for providing this opportunity to speak. My comments are around this resolution objecting to refugee settlement, and I I think you should not pass this resolution. Let me explain why. The Refugee Act of 1980 defines a refugee as an individual that meets very specific criteria and requirements before entering the country. Such refugees have the right to travel, work, and live just as we citizens do. We've heard there have been some problems with that. Okay, there have been problems with that, but they can come and go. They can come and settle here. There's nothing we can say. Maybe you don't like Somali people. Maybe you don't like white people. Maybe you don't like somebody. That doesn't mean you can tell them they can't live here. And under this act, also, the St. Croix County Board has no authority or decision-making power to limit these individuals. It's a completely symbolic resolution, obviously designed to raise some questions about immigration. But the Refugee Resettlement Program is a highly structured, rigorous process in which refugees are thoroughly vetted prior to acceptance. Those admitted are resettled in pre-approved refugee programs around the country. St. Croix County churches and other organizations and individuals have been involved in helping refugees under this program. The number of refugees settled is determined each year through the Office of President, as it has been for many years. In 2024, the number is set at 125,000 to be resettled somewhere in the United States in this entire year. Last year, Ukrainian refugee families, who was in the Star Observer, started their journey, their settlement journey, right here in St. Croix County. I'm very concerned that the act of passing this symbolic resolution could result in prejudice and potentially violence. St. Croix County is home to Hispanic, Hmong, African, and others who arrived and settled here over the past several decades. They are our neighbors. They are our friends. And in some cases, in my case, they are our family. Many are now U.S. citizens. Wisconsin agricultural, construction, manufacturing businesses rely on the labor of many immigrants. Are we going to object to that as well? The southern border troubles have been a very hot potato for several years under different Congresses and administrations. This symbolic resolution has nothing to do with the southern border.
Thank you, sir, for 3 minutes. Thank you.
Urge you not to pass it. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Sue Curtis, and on deck, Celeste Cobo.
Thank you for hearing all of us out today. Please reject this resolution and any form of it to follow. I specifically object to the lines 27 through 47. What I've been hearing, or what this sounds like to me, is that we don't want outsiders here, especially people that are different than us. This statement alone is enough for us, this committee, to reject that. It portrays our county as unwelcoming and hateful, and it may even backfire and cause the very people who they want to attract from moving into and doing business in our county. It appears that a couple supervisors are using this nonpartisan board to share and garner support for their personal partisan views and perspectives. In my opinion, they are receiving suggestions from others outside the county board whose intent is not to conduct county business, but to misuse this platform for political purposes. We've seen it tonight. And to extend their own fears and conspiracies. This resolution can really be a slippery slope of exclusion and discrimination. What's next? A resolution against the homeless? Or how about those who use addiction and mental health services? These individuals use extensive county services, and it's needed. Imagine excluding and restricting individuals because of the potential services that they may need. This would be horrible. As it stands now, any new resident would need to qualify for services just as any other resident, including a refugee. Additionally, my tax dollars have now been spent on unnecessary legal fees and administrative hours, and your time. The last paragraph of this resolution allocates infinite amount of tax dollars for litigation to support and to join other counties. Does that include all counties in the state? Milwaukee and Dane, are they included? This would be extremely costly and at the expense of needed county services such as public safety, court and justice, health and human services. Please do not spend any of my tax dollars to create these outlandish resolutions or fund uncapped dollars for litigation that in the end really have no effect except to waste valuable time and resources. Lastly, this is not the venue for addressing a larger, complex issue of immigration. This is a role for our Congress, and they need to work on that. Our representatives must work together to solve a very complicated issue. It's time that we do that nationally and locally. The authors of this resolution need to go through the proper channels for change and not use local, nonpartisan boards with already strained budgets. Lastly, to prevent this happening again, please adopt a process to vet these ineffective resolutions in the future.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Celeste, and then John Gostovich.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Celeste Cobrel. I have submitted written public comments previously to the members of this committee and to the whole board, and I ask that those be entered into the record. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've heard here today. First of all, there's a great deal of confusion here. As Paul Hamilton pointed out, refugee is a specific category of people who may enter the United States. It is defined by federal law. Our U.S. Constitution and our U.S. Supreme Court, in interpreting our U.S. Constitution, has established that the jurisdiction over immigration matters is exclusively that of our federal government. It is not the business of the St. Croix County government. The Refugee Resettlement Act that's been referred to here and is the subject of this resolution is exactly what many people here who have said they don't want to get any refugees is what they've been asking for. They said they want the rule of law. They said they want regulation. They said they wanted an end to chaos. That is exactly what the Refugee Resettlement Act provides for all of us. As has been pointed out, no more than 125,000 individuals currently may be admitted through the Refugee Resettlement Act to the United States in any one fiscal year. In 2024, the Biden administration has directed that most of those refugees should come from Western Europe. Who are we afraid of? What is our experience with refugees resettled in St. Croix County? In 2022, it was 2 families of Ukrainian refugees who fled Russia's war and completely inappropriate and illegal attack and destruction on the country of Ukraine. Is that who we're afraid of? I don't think so. People have said, well, my great-grandparents came here and nobody helped them. I stand here before you as the descendant of Norwegians, Swedes, Germans, Irish, English. My aunts have traced our genealogy back to people who came to this country in the 1600s. But we're all immigrants. And did we get handouts? Why, yes, we did. Some of my great-grandparents got 160 acres of prime farmland in the Midwest. That's worth quite a bit today. It launched my family to be very successful, profitable farmers. Yes, we should help each other. We have helped each other in the past. Many of the people who are here probably consider themselves Christians. I can cite 22 Bible verses directing Christians to welcome the immigrant. Perhaps some of you remember some of them. Welcome the stranger in your land, for I was once a stranger here, and even as you have done unto the least of these, so you have done unto me. Our board should reject this resolution because it is not the county's business, because it is a very well-managed program, and if you bothered to get the facts, you would find out that people are in fact vetted, and also it is the correct and moral thing to do, is to welcome the stranger in our land.
Thank you. All right, up next we have John Gostovich and then Alex Spalding.
My name is John Gostovich. I live in the town of Hudson. And I'm feeling really sad tonight listening to my neighbors express a lot of fear about people who are different. And I think of my grandfather who came here from Yugoslavia to mine coal with Mexican people in the state of New Mexico, never got a dime from any federal government agency, never learned to speak English, but he was a coal miner. Never caused any trouble, never went to jail. I look around this room, surrounded by mostly men, look to be, by and large, people who work for a living. Not attorneys, not big shots, not billionaires. But they are fearful of people who look different, who speak different languages, who may take something from them when so much has already been taken from them and given to the ruling classes of our country. Yeah, people take advantage of you guys. But it's not Somali people, it's not Mexican people, it's not black people, it's not people who speak a different language. God knows it's not Muslim people. You need to express some grace and some Christian love for people who have even less than you have, because they look to us for help, for brotherhood, for sisterhood, for decency, to take care of them and their children. And as Americans, we are called to do that. As Christians, we are called to do that. The least of these. Get out of this rabbit hole about this handful of refugees. You know, Tom Tiffany has no idea where they're coming from, so he tells us stories that are irrelevant about Afghan people that came to America some years ago. Don't listen to him. Listen to Jesus and try to do the right thing for people that really could use your help, your support, your love, your respect, your understanding, your care. You're decent people, and this is an opportunity to behave that way. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Alec Spalding or Spalding. I'm sorry, I can't tell which one it is.
Alex Spalding.
Spalding. All right, Alex Spalding. And following that, we have Bonnie Christensen.
Thanks, committee. Thanks, citizens. It's tough, all right, to come up with these answers. But I have to say that there are some dangers out there, okay? I'm not saying that all immigrants, okay? I have a family full of immigrants. My sister's a doctor. She married a guy from India, okay? So I have a lot of experience. I spent a lot of time in the Twin Cities, I live in St. Croix County now. Now, tonight, all of us got vetted, okay? And for good reason. We come through the doors there, we got checked, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. Do you think everyone is getting vetted all the time? Now, I'm not saying that of course there are good stories. Of course there are. But there is a threat. There are threats that exist. And do you think that they're not coming in with some agendas? If you don't think that some are on a different wavelength than you are, that doesn't mean that you're afraid of them. That just means that it's a concern. If you don't have that concern, and Mr. Holden is right, that is something that you can look up on your own. There are individuals out there who will burn the genitalia of their bride so they cannot have a normal sexual experience. If you call me afraid of that, then so be it. But that angers me. I don't think anyone should have to go through something like that. And again, don't take my word for it. Don't take Mr. Holden's word for it. Look it up. It's easy. You don't have to look too far to find out these true things. And it's in the Surah, it's in the Quran. If you do not comply, they're coming after you. And they don't take, and again, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I don't hate them. That's the difference. That's I don't hate anybody. I love them. I want them happy. But I think we have rights to defend ourselves here. That's all. And again, to just passively say everybody's going to be great and everybody's going to, I wish that were the case. I'd love to walk in here and tell you that. But with all due respect, that's just reckless passivity. You aren't looking at the facts, and maybe you don't want to look at the facts. I don't want to look at the facts. But I would urge you to do so. And unfortunately, you have to dig a little harder to get them today. That's all.
Please hold your applause. Thank you. Next up, we have Bonnie Christensen and then Scott Miller.
I came today from Chippewa Falls to help you realize your dreams. Your dreams may include helping everyone with everything they need. This dream can morph into a nightmare as you try to provide everything to everyone. Immigrants at the turn of the century came but were not always admitted. They received no government help, pulling themselves out of poverty by working with true grit. As a grade schooler, we began the day, hand over heart, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to our country. One nation, under God, indivisible, God, not Allah. Muslims cannot say the pledge as they consider it worship of a flag. It is blasphemy to them. Muslims cannot swear allegiance to America or even follow our Constitution. They can legally only follow Sharia law as stated in the Quran. The Quran lays out the entire legal system for Muslims. They have no choice to follow anything but Sharia, or they themselves will be subject to Sharia, which would call for their punishment up to and including death. We are now a divided nation, divided intentionally by our very government. Obama's promise to fundamentally change America is in the process of happening under our watch. We must stand up for our rights as a republic according to our Constitution. Muslim refugees use our laws against us to advance their desire and plan to infiltrate all aspects of our American way of life. We are infidels. Because we are infidels, Muslims cannot assimilate in America. Sharia law forbids it. A Milwaukee imam just called for jihad against Jews in America last week. Another one called for jihad from the St. Paul Capitol building steps last month. He was allowed to speak this treason because he has a right to free speech. As an acupuncturist working in Edina, Minnesota, half of our patients were Somali. I can state that I have personal experience. I made house calls to a Minnesota-built apartment complex for Somali refugees. Their TV is on. No soap operas, no game shows. They follow an imam sitting there on the floor, speaking Arabic, reading from the Quran. Jihad could be called for in every Muslim living room in an instant via TV. You are St. Croix County. You are the western wall of Wisconsin due to bridges and such. I implore you to not let the government delude you into a false sense of security when they tell you to accept refugees that cannot assimilate and have no desire to do so. We are infidels, subject to being subjugated by them. Do not be deceived. The federal government covers their expenses for 90 days. The county takes over after that. I want you to know, I have done a lot of research on this whole situation. 85% of Somalis cannot read or write.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. 3 minutes. Okay, next we have Scott Miller, and following that, Christina Haberman.
Thanks for giving us this open discussion time today. It's very important to our future of this country because we don't get to do that in some venues, so I do appreciate that. I've been listening to more board meetings, and whether it be here or municipalities, and all I hear is pleas for cash, right? Just like most people in society, we plead for cash because we're being drained dry by taxes that are then being wasted by our federal government. But the people who are opposed to this resolution believe that our federal government is the solution to our problem and going to fix our country or let refugees in and vet them. I mean, the only way we're going to turn this country around is by local boards, local people coming together, making common sense decisions for our communities. Our founding fathers seeing us, we in this room, the people in every other boardroom locally should have the most control over our lives. They didn't see our federal government taxing the shit out of everybody and then handing it out if they feel you're up for it. That's what we live through. I mean, I've listened to these board meetings where it's like, we don't have money, but somehow our federal government, is doling it out if they feel you fit the bill. And that's on both sides of the aisle. So the fact that we believe our federal government at this point is got our best interests in mind is a fallacy. And you may not believe what I'm saying, but it's probably because you're listening to the propaganda media, which is just an arm of our big corporations in our government. So I'm asking our county board to let's put this resolution out there. Part of the problem that I see with this resolution that gets everybody riled up has nothing to do with Muslim, black, white, pink, orange, LGBTQ. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that we can't follow our laws when we implement stuff like this. Everything's a little secret, but we think we should be able to ram it through at the end of the day. So that's why everybody's here. We're tired of it. We're really, really tired of nobody following laws, and then you watch people break them that are in our government, in our higher ranks of our corporations, and then nothing happens to them. So we just want the laws to be followed, and we want our local government to come back to power and take our federal government down where it belongs. There's only about 5 things that they should be controlling, and we need to get back to that. Thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. The next up, Christina Haberman. And that is the last public comment I have, so... Oh, sorry, Darla's on the phone. All right, Darla Myers will be after that.
Good evening, Board. I'm a member of this county, and I live out in Roberts, and I just want to say to you guys, I'm appreciative that we, the people, can come together to reason together. Reason together. It's not about any one of us being perfectly right. None of us are. All of us are doing our best, I think. However, when we can't reason together, as Scott said, because the laws aren't being followed, when we have to fight to have time to speak to those that we have voted in, that's a problem. It's a major problem. But the problem isn't going to be fixed by more government or the people in the government. We are the government. I was given this right by the people who shed their blood for it. I was given the right to eternal life by the one who shed his blood for me. And I take these rights seriously because it's my duty. It's my responsibility. And if I don't do it, I can't blame anyone else. If I do it and the wrong things are done, I've at least done my job. I've spoken my thoughts. I've spoken what I think to be the right thing to do. But my concern is that we can't seem to even reason together as a people. Reasoning means that we use logic, we use our intelligence, we do our research, and we do our best to limit our own personal bias. We all have it. Okay? The first step to solving a problem is admitting there is one. This is a problem. We have a problem because we can't have a dialogue on this without someone being called racist. I stand before you, a person of mixed heritage. You look at me because, like I'm white. I'm not. That's just because by the time my generation came along, the dark complexion was mostly gone. But I'm not white. I have ancestry that had to hide their heritage because the men couldn't get work. I have ancestry who was murdered by big corporations because they were allowed to dump illegal chemicals into rivers, and my people ate the fish and they died. Was anything done? No. We have to reason together as people because our laws demand it, and we, the people, have to stand up and demand it. And that's what I see happening. We have to have a public discourse. We have to have public dialogue. This isn't about a race. This is about a culture and a belief system that is absolutely anti everything this nation was founded on. I have friends in this group. I know people in this group. Not everyone is a bad person. Not all Christians follow the Bible to its letter. Okay? Guilty. I try. But if you don't look at the Quran and you don't understand the actual principles that many people do follow and take very seriously, then that's foolishness. And we can't reason together as a people if we aren't willing to look at things for what they are.
All right, thank you. I think we have one person that asked to call in.
This is a voicemail of Darla Myers. Please leave a message. May God bless you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Darla.
At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. To leave a callback number, press 5.
Hi, Darla. This is your friendly county administrator calling for public comment. Sorry we missed you, but I'm sure you'll get another chance. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other public comment? We've had a lot.
I'd like to talk again for a minute.
We're just going to do just one public comment per person.
I think that's not legal. I think anybody should be able to stand up and talk.
Sir, you had a chance to talk already.
I had one chance. I want another.
As
And anybody else can have another.
As the chair of the committee, it's my decision. So we heard your comments, and I appreciate them, but we have business to go through.
Public meeting is
Sir.
for people to stand up and talk. So anybody should be able to talk again.
No.
This is how this stuff gets rammed through.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to move on from public comment. We'll close public comment, and then we will go to our first agenda item. And so, given all the folks that are here today, we're going to move agenda item number 2 up to business item number 1 for the sake of people that are here. And so and then item number 2, which now is item number 1, will be a resolution objecting to refugee resettlement under the Refugee Act of 1980 within the county of St. Croix, Wisconsin. So I'm going to ask Supervisor Lind, who proposed the resolution, to come up first and provide her background on this, and then the committee will have a discussion. Supervisor Lind.
Thank you for the opportunity to bring and speak to this very important objection to refugee resettlement. For everything in this great land of ours requires a plan, an action, and a reaction. I have lived in beautiful St. Croix County for over 20 years. This county prides itself on betterment. We desire beautiful parks, smooth roads, safety, low taxes, and that will keep most people at least somewhat happy. The board just completed the budget for 2024, and the wish list is high-end, and the list of things we had to say no to was long. Health and Human Services is in need of more staff to meet the increasing needs for assistance with housing, health, mental health, those with addictions, financial challenges, and these are for our current citizen needs. How about if everyone desiring an influx of people in our county start tomorrow by picking up one family from Grace Place, United Way, Our Neighbors, or Operation Help and feed, clothe, house, transport, and provide health care for them for the next week. It's the right thing to do to care for those that need a hand up. But realistically, how would another family added to your home and personal budget impact you? What do you believe would be the impact to the city or the entire county for 75 families? I've been told this objection has nothing to do with public safety, infrastructure, or taxes, and is a waste of time. Our neighbors in Minneapolis made the decision to accept refugees starting in 1992. One small decision, and 30 years later, communities are unrecognizable. Has anyone here been to Minneapolis in the last 2 to 5 years? The Orpheum Theater, Twins, and Viking stadiums all require armed security. The Target headquarters has been in Minneapolis since 1960, and they just recently called it quits. The major crime, filth, and disrepair have forever changed the landscape and visitors to a once robust metropolis. I implore you to find even one day without a murder, robbery, theft, or carjacking in Minneapolis. July 4th, 2023 was mayhem in Minneapolis when a mob of people used large fireworks and pointed and deployed them at law enforcement, cars, and citizens. This group of individuals set the previously called Lake Calhoun Marina and many of the boats docked there on fire. In this, there was plan, action, and then reaction. Hennepin County has 585 sworn-in officers and cannot answer every call. There are car accident scenes that are no longer attended by law enforcement if nobody is hurt or dead. In November of 2023, Minneapolis had 7 school shootings in less than 24 hours, leaving several injured or dead. Is this what we desire for our county? Hudson Police Department has 28 full-time sworn-in officers. There are some smaller departments in a few of the communities. St. Croix County Sheriff patrols over 730 square miles. This division consists of a collection of 46 who patrol the highways, respond to 911 and non-emergency calls with current requests for increased staff. This resettlement is not about our feelings or politics. This is where we fight against the 100-mile radius plan from Eau Claire made up of backroom plans, and we just take first-level action. We do that today. Where do we want this county to be in 2, 5, 10, 20 years? Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lind. Okay, we're to the agenda item now. So, discussion among the committee. Supervisor Long.
Yeah, to start out the discussion, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. I would like to move to postpone indefinitely the consideration of this resolution based on the condition, however, that the county administrator and or corporation counsel will be charged with or tasked with identifying and or establishing the proper communication network such that we can proactively communicate in the county if and when the issue becomes an actual issue in the county, so that everyone can be communicated with and the community at large can then decide the appropriateness or any action that needs to be taken. And I'm happy to expand on that, assuming there's a second.
All right, Supervisor Long has made a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Supervisor Fiedler?
Did we need a second to Supervisor Lynn's initial proposal?
No.
So she had, okay, so Supervisor Long's motion is the only motion on the table?
Correct.
I'll second it.
All right, Motion by Supervisor Long, second by Supervisor Fiedler. Supervisor Long, would you like to offer further?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say I really appreciate all the comments that have been made here tonight. I totally respect and appreciate your opinions and your compassion in particular. So I just want to make some comments and try to explain my strategy in terms of conditioning this motion. So bear with me. I'll try to be concise. Let me talk about the actual resolution in and by itself. Okay, basically, I've read this many times. There's nothing in it about a pause, by the way. But basically what it says is we object. We object to what? Nothing's really happening in the county right now, so there's really nothing to object to. And then the objection is based on the fact that a resettlement would adversely impact the quality of life in the county. Well, we don't know that because we have no information on what the resettlement would be. Okay, we need information. So in essence, my opinion is the resolution is essentially meaningless because it has no impact whatsoever on the county. It is symbolic, and as many of you know, I've made a point to try not to get symbolic resolutions to the county board because we have a lot of critical things we need to be working on. We have, Dr. Golly just mentioned last week, or at the last board meeting, about the incredible increase in fentanyl in the county. That's critical. We have a lot of mental health issues that we're dealing with that we really need to focus on. So this is basically a distraction. But let's talk about the information that we need to make decisions as a community, okay? We don't have any information right now on what the possible resettlement might be. We need to know how many people are going to be involved. Is it a dozen, or a couple hundred, or a couple thousand? Where are they coming from? Are the kids involved? What are their needs? Are there any particular medical needs that they might have? Are there language barriers? There's a whole litany of information that we need in order to make the right decision as a community as to whether or not it's going to be appropriate for us. We heard examples tonight of resettlements that have worked out really well. Okay, I'd like to think as compassionate human beings that we would consider at least looking at the information to decide is it appropriate or not. And there may be other situations where we'll look at the information and we'll go, you know what, this is really a bad idea. And we can't let it happen. We need to pull the plug on that. But we need to, first of all, we need the information, and then we need to bring everybody to the table and decide as a community what's going to be best for us. And the information starts at the communication. So in order to get the information, we need to make sure that the communication network is in place so that everybody is communicated with, municipalities, all of our law enforcement, our faith community, everybody involved, so that we have the information and we can make good, sound, logical, well-informed decisions based to the benefit of the community. The resolution, basically, whether it adversely impacts the county, it's a conjecture. We have an obligation to make decisions based on good, sound information and facts. So what I'm proposing as an alternate suggestion is, rather than just have a piece of paper that says we object, if you want to do something, let's do something. Do something by making sure that the communication network is in place so that we will know up front if anything's going to happen or if anything's going to be proposed, and we won't get caught like our poor friends in Eau Claire And we will be able to address the situation up front when it becomes an issue at that time, so we can decide as a community what's appropriate and whether or not it will work for us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Supervisor Long. Other comments? Supervisor Fiedler.
I don't want to take too much time either, but I am going to review a couple of things. I thought, first of all, the speakers today on both sides of this question were just outstanding in their thoughtfulness, the way they were eloquent, they were heartfelt, and I really appreciate it. That's what we're all about here at the county. I'd also like to praise Supervisor Lind for bringing this to everybody's attention and making, because it's the big issue in America today, is immigration. Now, it's different from refugee settlement in St. Croix County, but immigration is the #1 issue in America, and there's no question about that. And we see a lot of bad things happening all over the country as a result of the illegal immigration that's going on. So we all have to accept that and the dangers of that. It's huge, it's vital. I think Heather McDonald made the quote that if you replace the people of the culture today, is it going to be the same culture for your grandchildren? Well, obviously it's not. It's going to be a whole different world. Somebody made reference to that during the public comments. Dr. Babbitt made some very good comments about the history of this board and how it treated sanctuary county status. That was a very, I'm going to call it liberal board back in those days, and they took the position, no, even though they might personally feel they wanted to welcome refugees, they said, no, it's not county business. It was a good example. Tom Irvin brought up some very interesting things. They handed out a distribution. I don't know if the audience got it or not, but it was a piece that is labeled From the Archives of the Muslim Brotherhood of America. And it's a statement by the Muslim Brotherhood about their positions, okay? And Tom represented them correctly when he spoke. The first 2 pages of that are an introductory letter. It's attached to those statements of the Muslim Brotherhood by a fellow named Frank Gaffney, who heads the Center for Security Policy in Washington, D.C. I'm going to be a name dropper here, but I was a good friend of Frank Gaffney's. I am a good friend of Frank Gaffney's. I've worked closely with the Center for Security Policy. I've had Frank on programs that I've put on. I put on 1,000 national security programs in another life, and Frank was a frequent speaker on my programs. I heartily endorse every single thing Frank Gaffney has said about the problems of Sharia and the followers of fundamentalist Sharia. Doesn't cover everybody in the Islamic faith, but it is their guiding document. Okay, and we have to recognize that, no matter what position we take on this. I had a couple hats during life. One was a civilian hat, one was a military hat. In my military life, I was first exposed. Well, I think Mark Carlson, Supervisor Carlson, talked about the good experience with Hmong in the Twin Cities. I first started out with helping the refugees from Vietnam, because that was my military specialty became somewhat dealing with refugees, not somewhat, totally dealing with refugees. And I was a representative of the 82nd Airborne Division for 6 years. I was a displaced persons and refugees officer for them. First Gulf War, Desert Storm, I guess we should call it. I was a legal officer for something called the Kuwait Task Force. My specialty in life was the Middle East. It was Sharia law. Believe me, it is not good for us. So I concur with everybody's statement who commented about Sharia and the impact of Sharia on us. It is not good, period. But, and following my time in, I'll say, southern Iraq and Kuwait, I was actually called from my CENTCOM position to a EUCOM position, European Command position, to deal with 500,000 refugees in northern Iraq that Saddam Hussein was killing. I spent another 2 months trying to save their lives, and we succeeded. We had a few deaths, but we saved 500,000 Kurds that Saddam was trying to poison. So I've lived refugees for a good deal of my life, seen the pros and cons of them, know the ins and outs of what they can bring to a community. A couple years ago, I was in Eau Claire at an economic development conference. One of the things we've heard at our board is in Wisconsin, we're losing our demographics. We're losing people. We're going to be 130,000 people short of jobs needed in Wisconsin to be viable by 2030, 130,000 short. And my comment to that group was, this was right after the Russians had invaded Ukraine, I said, what about refugees from Ukraine? Okay, They fit our demographic to a T. They're bright. They love America. They would be the most patriotic people you've ever seen in your life. And another part of my life, I spent in Eastern and Central Europe, and somebody from here was from Yugoslavia. And I'm every single young person I met from Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, Montenegro, all the places that were the former Yugoslavia, the thing they wanted to do most in life was come to America and be free like Americans. This was their hope in life, Romania. In fact, I brought a young lady from America to the United States as part of a student transfer program, not transfer, but student program. And when I first met her, a long story I won't go into, but I was at dinner with her and a 17-year-old lady, and her mother, and I asked the young lady what was her wish in life. She says, to come to America, to study, to learn about America. And that's the attitude of so many people from, I'll just say, Western civilization. They would be great additions to St. Croix County. But some people, I think, wouldn't be, and I pretty much noted that. I'm going to leave it at that, and it's a tough decision we've got. And I think Supervisor Long has made a very good motion to effectively pause what we're doing, as Congressman Tiffany suggested we might want to do, while we establish good lines of communication, make people aware of the pros and cons of this, let people know that there are issues. We have fiscal issues for sure, as Supervisor Lynn brought up. We've got to take care of our own people. But maybe the resolution is a little bit too direct in what we do, but certainly we should be very aggressive if this becomes more of a certain event or likely event, and maybe maybe we'll take action on the various resolve clauses that are part of this resolution at the proper time. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fiedler. I just want to make a few comments here and start out also by thanking everybody who took the time to be here tonight. And we've been here a while. I really felt it was important to let everybody have a chance to share their thoughts. So thank you for doing that. Just a couple comments tonight. We heard a lot, I think, about the rule of law and how important it is. I agree, the rule of law is very important. But we're talking about the Refugee Resettlement Act. That is the current federal law. And so I definitely feel that local government is a super important place actually to, share your thoughts and be proactive. But I think this resolution is really addressing a federal law that is outside of our purview as a county. So I would encourage folks, if you have a concern about the federal law, to definitely talk to your federal representatives and communicate that to them, because that's really where some of the platform is. We have heard a lot of comments tonight about Islam and just related to kind of perspectives or information about that religion. And I have to be honest, that concerns me a little bit. Our country was founded by folks who are looking for freedom of religion. And I think that's a very important thing, freedom of religion. But that doesn't say which religion freedom of religion is freedom of religion. So I'm a little concerned when we're talking about refugees that the blanket statements were based on disagreement with a religion, which everyone has, of course, their right to disagree with certain religions. But that was concerning a little bit to me. And also, to be honest, I just feel like this resolution just feels wrong to me as an American. A lot of us came here as refugees. I know it's been mentioned tonight, our ancestors came here as refugees. And I think, I don't have the exact wording, but I'm pretty sure on the Statue of Liberty, which is a major symbol for our country, there is a poem that talks about bring me your tired, your poor, your folks that are yearning to be free. And don't quote me if I said that wrong. But I know it says something to that effect. And so this resolution to me just feels like a complete affront to that. And I think liberty and that having people come to this country is a key part of our history. And so, again, if there's concerns about the refugee resettlement, how that's being managed as a federal law, and I encourage you to talk to your representatives. That's important. That's what they're there for. But I just don't see that that's our role as a county. So I would be supportive of Supervisor Long's motion. to basically take a look at, to postpone indefinitely, I believe that was your motion, Supervisor Long, and make sure that we do have the communication, because I do also think it's important for us as a community to have communication, and if we can set up structures within the county or the lines of communication that, so folks are aware of what's happening, and we all have that moving forward, then I think that's a good plan. Okay, any other comments from the committee? No? Okay, Supervisor Counter.
Just a question on, and this would be partially on the legal side, I guess, but if we postpone indefinitely, if I understood that right, does that, is there a difference between that for whether that's prejudicial or not prejudicial, where this can be, again, if at a point that you bring things forward that this needs to be addressed?
It is not prejudicial. The same exact resolution can't be brought back before a committee, but a resolution in a different format or asking for something else could be brought back to committee in the future. Chair or Supervisor Long's motion to postpone indefinitely would kill this resolution, but require us to set up the communication strategy. But in the future, a different resolution could be brought forward at some point when there's more facts and information as indicated by Supervisor Long.
Supervisor Counter.
In the process of doing this, how would you see us being able to gather the information? It sounds like there's a bunch of different organizations that become involved with this, and how would you see being able to have the ability to react to this? Because a lot of times these things come in and all of a sudden they're thrust upon you, and if you haven't had the ability to prepare for it, how would we be able to organize to ensure that we have the time to react?
And I can respond to that in just a little bit. There is a Senate bill currently pending. It's 2023 Senate Bill 916. And that Senate bill is proposing to create Wisconsin Statute 66.0443, which requires local governments to designate an individual for consultation required under the Refugee Resettlement and Assistance Program. So it does look like in the legislature currently in Wisconsin that the Senate bill is being addressed, and basically it would set up a process for a chief elected official to be assigned in each jurisdiction, and then all local units of government, meaning cities, villages, towns, counties, and school districts, would be involved in the communication process. So that might be one avenue, if that bill were to proceed forward, that sets forth the structure and framework for communication to come from basically the volunteer organizations or the federal government to the local governments. So that's one way I think that this could be addressed, and it looks like that was recently submitted, and so it was read for the first time and referred to the Committee on Transportation and Local Government on January 11th of this year.
Yep, Supervisor Long.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, because you can have that communication network in place, but how is it going to be invoked? And how are we going to make sure that the right people are going to get the information? So I think that's something else that we could discuss at the time that we hear back from county administrator as to what is that communication network. Then we can make sure that we've got it, make sure that we're comfortable that there are ways of invoking that, so make sure everybody gets the information they need. Is that reasonable, or?
Yeah, it sounds like
that's another way of saying I'm not really sure, but it's a really good question.
Sounds like I've been assigned a task. Got it.
Okay, any other discussion by committee members? Seeing none, there a motion by Supervisor Long to postpone indefinitely, second by Supervisor Fiedler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Everybody, let's move back to our agenda. We will go back to item number 1, financial reports for December 2023. Ken.
All right. The real reason we're here. Yeah, the screen's not quite right for me, but no, it's really not. So basically, the only thing I was going to point out, I'd point out the insurance funds last month. They are all still in the red, and the health insurance ended about $1 million in the red. So we have a $3.2 million fund balance in the health insurance fund, but probably consumed about a third of that with a bad year. So that'll be something that we're going to want to watch. Other than that, I would be happy to entertain any questions on the financial report.
All right, any questions from the committee? If not, we will move on to our next agenda item. Item number 3, reclassification request to create land use planner 2 position. Audrey.
Can I ask one?
Oh, yep, Supervisor Counter.
Sorry, but just bringing back, Ken, on the insurance issue, just knowing kind of the case histories and the things that are going on, do you see it projecting for similar for next year? Do you think that things are, you know, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but on the other side, some of the cases that are out there, are they going to carry over considerably into the next year? Or?
Yes.
Yes. So we will be looking at a
So we reinsure at $175,000. So any one claim loss, we're limited to $175,000. So I mean, we had a claim that was probably $2.5 million. We only paid $175,000 of that claim. So we have reinsurance for that. The reinsurance, though, then looks at our claim history and charges our reinsurance premium based upon that experience rating. And that's where we're seeing some really big increases in some of our administrative costs of the plan. And then with those types of claims, it'll probably mean a larger increase in health insurance. And when we talk about limited resources, a larger increase when we pay 90% of that is a significant financial cost for the county in the 2025 budget.
Yeah, Supervisor Fiedler.
This doesn't deal directly with a financial report, but it deals with the administrator and aspects of what we need to think about when we look at a financial report. I'll just make it very brief. And in another context, the Public Protection Committee has asked the administrator and others that report to that committee to put together a statistical picture of their work. And I think that that would be a very good idea for all the departments of the county to have some document, I'll say. By the way, I think that the administrator's annual report is a good, perhaps, vehicle for that. And it was done last year for the first time, more or less. But a good statistical picture of all the key departments of our county, I think, is essential. And I just don't think it's been done. And I think it should be done. And I would just throw that out. We don't need a vote. We don't need any more discussion on it. But if the administrator could take that to heart, and if others support that, and we can work with the administrator on what we're trying to get, but I think a good statistical picture would be very helpful.
Okay, no comment from over there. All right, we'll move on to item 3 then, the reclassification request to create land use planner 2 position. Audrey.
So kind of like it says, we want to create a new land use planner 2 position, but we're not asking for any additional FTE. So we would use existing FTE. There's 3 approved FTE assigned to the land use planner 1 position. So we'd just like to pool those 2 positions together so that we can utilize that FTE in either position as needed. The addition of it would provide new programs and services, which could possibly bring in additional revenue and or should bring in additional revenue, and also reduce the cost that's currently being spent on outsourcing some of the new responsibilities that that position would take on.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Any motion from the committee?
Let's make a motion to approve the reclassification request to create land use planner 2 position.
All right, motion by Supervisor Cowner. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Long. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item, reclassification request of behavioral health technician to behavioral health case manager, social worker. Audrey.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Right, it's already an existing FTE. There's somebody who is already filling this position. There's 3 behavioral health technicians in behavioral health, but there's been a mass increase in the number of emergency detentions and mental health commitments, and those types of cases kind of take a certain individual with certain knowledge about those positions or those types of cases to work. They've tried assigning those cases between the 3 existing, and it just doesn't work because those cases are so special. And so they assign all of them to the single behavioral health tech. Based on the complexity of the cases, that position then, or that individual, has already been performing the job duties that are typically already classified under a case manager or social worker. So she's basically doing the job already. So they would like to continue that path, but also move her to that position since she's already really performing those duties. And then in the future, because I do know, right, reclasses aren't about an individual who's able to do a job. It's about the position as a whole. So in the future, what is their needs? It'll continue to be this need. So if that person were to leave, they would replace this position as a case manager, social worker, but they would look for the specific skill set, education and experience background that individual will be able to continue to work with these types of clients and cases. So there is a little bit cost, right, anticipated expense. Additional costs looking at around $10,000 to $19,000, but it will create about $10,000 to $13,000 in additional revenue just by moving the position from behavioral health tech to case manager, social worker. That way they can, some of the job duties that they perform can be billed to Medicare then under the role of social worker, so that they can actually bill those out, bring in those revenues to help offset some of the cost of the additional pay that comes with the position moving from behavioral health tech to case manager.
Okay, Supervisor Cowner.
With that, how does, you said Medicare would be able to help reimburse. You have a roundabout as far as the reimbursement? Do we see like?
They were thinking about 8 to 10 hours a week could be reimbursable off of that, which is for annual would be about $10,000 to $13,000.
So our net cost would be
right now. It's
8.
looking. Her specifically, so she would move into a case manager role versus a social worker 1 or social worker 2. So you're looking at an increase in cost of about $10,000. And so that could be completely offset by the revenues that they could bring in. But future, if you were to hire somebody with additional experience, social worker background, social worker credentials, that position could get, it would cost up to an additional $19,000, and maybe only 13 of that 19 would be offset. So future expenses could be around $6,000.
All right, any other discussion by the committee? If not, does anyone have a motion? All right, motion by Supervisor Long. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Cowner. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, our next item, consideration of process for reviewing reclassification requests. And this may sound familiar to you, Supervisor Fiedler. This is part of your discussion. So let's turn it over to Ken maybe to talk, provide some background. He and I had some discussion about it, but he's going to provide some kind of process background for us to consider.
Yeah, the previous process, we had only allowed reclassification requests as part of the budget. And so they would be due by June, they would be effective then on January 1 of the next year. We purposefully made a change from that process to look at them on a monthly basis, but the administration committee would have to approve them to make the organization more flexible to changing needs and adapting, knowing though that it would cause you extra work. Now, I mean, we can put them on a consent agenda, like you had suggested, as a possibility. But A, is I do want you to look at them and be the ones taking action, because they do have potentially budgetary impacts. So the board, not administration, should be making those decisions. And two, they really don't take that long for you to review. So if you want them on a consent agenda, that's fine. But if we list them individually, I at least know we're going to go over them and you've heard them before you vote on them.
Supervisor Long.
Yeah, I've actually thought about trying to put a lot of these more routine items in the consent agenda for the full board. So at least we have the opportunity to talk about it. It does get on the board agenda, but it's not going to take up a lot of time because it should be fairly routine and acceptable by the board. I don't know if the thought was to do something similar at the committee level or not. I guess I would defer to your preference as to how much you really want us to discuss it. And I guess a lot of it depends on how big of a change it is, how routine or how big it is. So
I can say I appreciate Supervisor Fiedler's suggestion that we try to be as efficient as possible with our meetings. But also, I kind of think it's important for us to have a chance to talk about them. So I'm okay with the current structure, although I only have 2 meetings left. So if you, I don't know if you want to, I mean, this item isn't really for a decision today, really. So it's more for a conversation. So perhaps it's something that the new administration committee will want to talk about, or the new administration committee chair. I don't know. Do you have further discussion, Supervisor Fiedler?
I just agree with everything everybody said. I haven't gone back and looked at it, but I'm betting that 19 out of 20 proposals we've accepted with minimal discussion. And I was just trying to make it slightly easier for the administrator and staff to take those things that are needed timely fashion, and have the ability to actually either do them in maybe even an interim appointments, come back to us for approval maybe. But if something is really needed, and let's say it's we've skipped our December meeting and there's a snowstorm in January, well, you can do it. Under maybe some standard that you would suggest to us. Let's say it's 2 positions or less, $200,000 or less total cost, needed somewhat urgently. Fine, those would be 3 standards. Give the administrator the authority to implement that and come back to us for approval, which we could reject, or something like that. But I don't think we need to discuss it any further. I think it was just a discussion item, but I just throw that out. If he thinks it's a valuable thing to have in his pocket, come back to us with a suggestion, and it might receive a warm welcome.
Yep. Supervisor Long.
Quick comment and question. A lot of that comes from because we trust you guys. So that's actually a compliment on your end. But are the rest of the committee, are you guys okay with more of these items being included in the consent agenda at the board level? Or do you have concerns about that?
Supervisor Counter.
Yeah, I personally, I think I like that we are at least looking at this and discussing it at the admin committee. I think getting that out there, at least we have, there are comments that have been made in the past on some of the positions and the things that were said. Generally, it's always been very positive. I can't think of any that have been negative in any aspect, but having it explained to us when we sit at the committee that does the approval, and because these are budgetary issues where there's potential for change, really the onus comes back to the board members for being the responsible party. And so I still believe that doing this at our admin level should at least be there. Once those decisions are made, if the information is in the board packet as part of the consent agenda and they get the details, if there's any questions that are there, they can extract that out and bring it up that, hey, we need to discuss this particular item. So having it on the consent agenda at the full board meeting, I think that can easily be transparent because they still get it in the board packet.
And just to clarify, the reclassification requests don't go to the county board unless we're going to ask for a budget amendment in conjunction with it. So typically, in the two that you've seen here tonight, we've said the money's close enough, it's just absorbed in the budget, there's no budget amendment requested with it. The committee just approves that. It gets listed as a change in the next budget. So on the 2025 budget, it'll be on that list of position changes approved by administration committee. Now, there was another one that we had talked about with the HHS director that would have had about a $20,000 impact, and that probably would have required a budget amendment to go with it. And so that one would have required full county board approval. So we do have different levels depending on the fiscal impact of them already.
Okay, any other discussion on this topic? Nope. If not, we will move on to item number 6. Ordinance to repeal and recreate Chapter 2, Records Retention and Disposition of the St. Croix County Code of Ordinances. Heather, I think we're looking to you on this.
Yes, thank you.
Records retention schedule, right?
Yes, every 10 years, the counties have to adopt a new records retention schedule. So I'm sorry that the hundreds and hundreds of pages in your packet tonight are all the various schedules. So first, we do receive permit or adoption approval from the Wisconsin Public Records Board, and we have done that. On November 12th of 2023, the Wisconsin Public Records Board and the Wisconsin Historical Society did acknowledge the notifications and authorize St. Croix County to utilize the general records schedules. So what is attached in your packet is all the schedules that we have to follow here in the county. And I can tell you that my paralegal and I met with the various department heads, talked about the schedules, made sure that they all fit into the department structures and there were no concerns with the retention periods. And most of the department heads agreed that the retention schedules and the periods to retain records was appropriate. So we just ask that you adopt this ordinance, basically to repeal and recreate Chapter 2. And the reason we repealed and recreated it is we are putting it into a new format. That is how we want our numbering to be for all county ordinances. And then it just adopts the new general record schedules.
Any discussion? Supervisor Long.
So are there any real significant changes, or does this just create a more consistent structure?
More consistent structure, and there are some significant changes for particular records. I can tell you for the Corporation Counsel Office, our current record schedule indicates that we have to keep Board of Adjustment files forever. The new record schedule says we have to keep them for 40 years. So that is a difference, 40. But Community Development Committee, they have to keep Board of Adjustment records forever, permanently. So there are a few minor changes. Actually, this new general record schedule does create consistencies and efficiencies. So for example, in the Sheriff's Office, they have Patrol Division, Detective Division, Jail Division, Administration Division, and they had different records retention periods for incident reports in each of those divisions. Now, under this new general record schedule, there's just one retention period for all incident reports, regardless of the division it's under. So it does help in clarifying some of those issues, and I think this is a more efficient schedule. It's just in a new format that everybody will have to get used to. So they know to call Corporation Counsel when they're trying to destroy files. I can tell you the Sheriff's Office and a lot of the offices in this building are trying to do that right now. So when we move to the new building, we are not taking records with us that should be destroyed. So this is perfect timing.
Supervisor Fiedler.
I'll just move the adoption of the ordinance to repeal and recreate Chapter 2.
All right, motion by Supervisor Fiedler. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Long. Any other discussion? Supervisor Counter.
Well, it's more a question on your part, but with these requirements of these permanent records and stuff, how much redundancy do we have to, because everything's being done electronically now, and so if you don't have hard copy of anything anymore, because we're going all electronic, how many different systems of redundancy? How are we set up so that we can protect ourselves for liability for the future?
And I don't know if I'm the best person to ask that. IT might be a better person to ask that, but I can tell you in our office, we're using Laserfiche to scan records, and the electronic record is our permanent record, and we get rid of the paper copies. And they do have backup capacity through Laserfiche, so we're protected there. I know John Allegro from IT can probably tell you that we have backup of systems so that there are protections for the electronic records. A lot of departments have like case management software or some type of software that's cloud-based, so there's backups. I'm not the most technology person, so I'm sure I'm saying things wrong. But yes, there are protections for our electronic records to ensure that there are backups, and so if their server crashed, that there are backups for the server. And John's shaking his head at me, so hopefully I'm correct.
Are you coming up to share information, John?
If you want it, gladly share.
Okay.
If you don't know, John, I'm always the nervous Nelly.
Yeah, we do. We have a specific backup strategy. Currently, we have 3 copies of our data stored in 2 different locations, and part of that is in the cloud. So it's getting backed up by our cloud provider too at the same time. So I don't want to get too specific with that because it gives away a little too much information. But we can recover from a disaster if one happened. Please don't happen.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, having been responsible for records, retention, and compliance in a previous role, it's not a glamorous work, but it's important. So thank you, Heather, and all the department heads that worked on this, because it is an important process. So any other discussion? Nope. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, and our final item, resolution authorizing continuation of self-insured workers' compensation program. Ken.
Yep, this is a resolution that we do once every 3 years in order to certify with the state our intent to continue with a self-insured workers' compensation program rather than buying insurance. We do purchase reinsurance at the $500,000 level for any one claim. Overall, though, what I would say is that this saves the county significant amounts of money by self-insuring.
Supervisor Long.
That was going to be my question. So have we looked into, what it would cost and what the implications were? And so it sounds like clearly we'd be much better off self-insuring, but I have to ask the question. So.
Yeah, well, what I can tell you is an insurance company is never going to lose money in the long run. So if they look at our track history, they will establish a premium, which will build in to cover all of the costs and their profits. And so we're just eliminating the profits piece and just covering our cost.
Supervisor Cowner.
Risk. We've had one catastrophic last year dealing with that, and then do we see we pray that there isn't a trend of some things like that to happen for the future, but how there's always risk involved if it gets out of hand. Do we have you were saying a cap rate, and then after that, then we do have insurance for catastrophic.
Yep. We insure for catastrophic claims, which we've only hit once in the last 8 years. 4 of the last 6 I know I looked at were in the black, where we budgeted and generated the internal service fund more revenues than we had expenses. Last year was in the red, as all of our insurance funds were for 2023, but by about $40,000 out of the self-insured health or workers' compensation fund. So.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing continuation of self-insured workers' compensation program.
Okay, there's a motion by Supervisor Counter. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Long. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We made it through the business items. So, requests for future agenda items. Any requests for future agenda items? See none. All right. Announcements or correspondence? No? Nobody? Our date of our next meeting is February 20th. And with that, we will, Supervisor Fiedler.
Just a question, if I could ask. Does the chair have a thought on whether we will have a March meeting?
I guess my thought would be I will connect with our administrator to see if we need to have a meeting in February and March, kind of coordinate, I guess, what we have on the schedule. I don't know what issues might be coming up, so.
It's pretty late right
We
now.
won't have a meeting if we don't need to. Are you going to be out on March?
I'm not sure of the date.
February 20th.
March 20th.
Oh, March?
Yeah, I have the February date, but I don't
Whatever
know
the third Tuesday
offhand the
is.
March date.
March 19th.
March 19th, okay. We will, we'll have a conversation about what.
Now,
we
there
have.
won't be an April county board meeting for actionable business items. Any items that were recommended in March by committee would go to the May county board general business items. It's always sort of an odd time every other year.
Okay. We will share that information, whether it'll be a March meeting, as soon as possible, Supervisor Fiedler. Okay, then we will adjourn at 7:29. Thanks, everybody, for sticking around. Appreciate it.